Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach.
I'm Holly Deschenes. I'm Brandon's co-host and producer for this podcast.
Today, we're going to get into the idea of permission to take risks. A lot of times it's kind of, it aligns with a lot of times people say, like, oh, like in your 20s and stuff, that's when you take risks. Really, anytime you need to shake things up, anytime it's gotten really dry and boring, and maybe you're not too happy with what's going on, we need to shake up the energy. We need to try new things. We need to put ourselves out there in new ways. And a main idea is, okay, there's like the risk of what if it doesn't go well, but it's like there's also the risk of what if I just stay right where I'm at. And if I know what that brings, it comes down to how do you want to live your life? And regrets do hit us pretty hard. It's a lot to carry, and it's not about being reckless. It's more about calculated risks at a certain point. Obviously, it's easier to take risks when you have nothing to lose. And a lot of times, maybe we've gone through a lot of struggle and we took a lot of risks to get where we're at, and so now maybe we've built stability, and that stability, it creates safety, security, but it also might not be fulfilling for us anymore. It's about bringing new life into your life. It's about not stagnating. So I'm excited to get into this topic. I think it's a good one for a lot of people. Many of us are very security minded. It's just about questioning some of that stuff and taking risks that are manageable as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll do a question of the week for Brandon, which is not necessarily tied to this, but as a reminder, you can submit a question if you have one for us to talk about on the podcast via DM on any of the social platforms or via email. Links for all that stuff are always in the show notes. All right. So I guess this kind of goes with taking risk, but let's talk about taking steps toward building self trust.
Yeah, so self-trust is, yeah, I do think they do go hand in hand. Self-trust is, it shows up in a lot of ways. If I get kind of caught into people pleasing or getting my validation from other people, a lot of times I'm going outside myself and I'm not actually directing my life. And that usually we lose self-trust because maybe we've betrayed ourselves in certain ways. Maybe we've gotten heavily programmed by society and those types of things where we've learned to just seek from authority all the time. When we're disconnected, we don't really have that sense of self-trust because it's like I'm always externally focused. So a big part of this work is we try to bring our attention inward, and that's where your answers lie. And so that is how we build self-trust, is we build that connection. And generally we have a hard time trusting ourselves, specifically in areas where we have weaknesses. And so I define a weakness as an area, maybe it's underdeveloped, maybe we don't know much about it, or two, we have a lot of pain there. So maybe there's some traumas, maybe there's a lot of unresolved issues in a specific area, like a relationship or something of that nature. That makes us question ourselves a lot because we get emotionally flooded when we are operating from those emotions. We're not seeing reality clearly. It's colored by the pain of the past and how to protect ourselves from that. And so to build self-trust, we are trying to work through that stuff, get a clearer signal about what's right for us. It's about bringing your energy back inward and sorting through things. And it's much like that process I walk people through every day is we're trying to neutralize negative emotions. We're trying to um, detach and depersonalize from these stories that no longer serve us. It can be a lot of shame-based stuff, right? Like I might not be forgiving myself for something, and so I've given up my power and deferred that to other people. The trust is built on that connection, and so sometimes we have to move some energy and clear that out. It's taking small steps that are, that don't have big consequences attached to them. So it's like me putting myself out there in a new way and seeing how I do. It's through that we get caught in all these patterns, these practice habits, and that brings certainty for us. We're on autopilot. We're not really involved in the process. And so we start to get back to that connection when we start to bump up against that typical life we're living. So it's me, it might be me saying no to somebody. If I always say yes, it might mean taking a risk or putting myself out there in a new way. But we're trying to confront, go into uncomfortable situations so that we can see what's there, where the doubt does come up, where we do really question ourselves, where I freeze up and can't take any action. We get that data by taking steps off our normal path. It's putting ourselves out there in new ways. That's what brings these things to the surface. That's what it is I have to build confidence in my ability to make decisions. We start with small decisions of, I'm just going to take this little step. I'm going to take this little chance. I'm going to try to do some, I'm going to slow down and stop myself when I feel pulled into reaction of what I'm normally going to do. And my mind's going to give me negative commentary anytime I'm off track. It's going to be feeding me information. If I'm not doing what I normally do, it's trying to keep that going. And so that's where the shame might start to come up. That's where the things that have pulled me out of my connection are going to surface. I have to have this ability to detach from those thoughts and really start to connect to a better story. We start asking deeper questions like, why do I feel this way? Where did this come from? Ultimately, that leads to the decision of like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so then we start building this internal structure where we trust that we'll be okay no matter what. Okay. And so I think many of us, if we can look back through the course of our life, it's like through all the hard situations and the challenges, if you're listening to this podcast, you're still alive, you got through it. And one way or another, things worked out, even if it didn't look like it would be. And so that can help support this case for, trusting life a little bit, trusting that we can all be resourceful, we can all work through hard things. And it's the avoidance of all those things that in checking out of life that really weakens those muscles. If things have always worked out for me one way or another, and maybe it was a struggle, but I got through the other side, that's really the worst that can happen is problems to solve and struggles to go through, right? And we might be tired of that, but that's generally how we grow. That's generally it's facing that stuff, confronting it, working through it. The only way we get that trust back is by following our desires too, the things that are meaningful to us, the things that I'm motivated to do, that I have excitement behind. Me being able to follow that allows me to make mistakes, that allows me to work through those struggles. It's always in that area of what matters most to you, that's what we use. That's where we're going to have to build self-trust if we want to reach our goal or if we want to grow in a certain area. That is about me being able to be comfortable in my own skin in that area. So it might be some processing, it might be, okay, I've settled into things and I'm giving too much of my power away. I'm just going along with the flow of life. And that might not be fulfilling for me. So I'm going to deviate from that. Through that, I'm going to have to confront the parts of me that doesn't trust myself. When we're in full self-trust, that's also what freedom is. That's when I feel safe at home. I can go about my business because like I know I can handle whatever is going to come my way. And so we trust that more when we're able to face and work through hard problems. I think that was one specific thing, but that was a number of things.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah, I
sure.
think it intertwines pretty well with this topic today.
Yeah, so let's talk about taking risks and yeah, how it feels and getting past some of the roadblocks related to that.
When did I settle in? I think that's a good question for a lot of people. It's like when did I stop taking risks? When did I stop following excitement? There might be some things there for you. What led up to that? What led up to that decision? Sometimes it's like, oh, I like got married, started a family, I wanted more stability and that kind of thing, which is completely fair. Um, but when did I stop bringing new energy into my life too? Okay. And because that's what we're talking about is it's leaving the nest. It's leaving the safety and security in exchange for the unexpected. So something that I don't quite know what's going to happen, but I trust, once again, I'll trust that I get through it. I trust that I'll be okay. And so why do we stop taking risks? It's generally, it is the product of a lot of struggle. And maybe we had a lot of insecurity financially and maybe within ourselves. And so we started to build this lane that felt more comfortable for us. Nobody likes to struggle, but the growth path is this ability to understand that being uncomfortable is part of the process. The more we can do that, the higher degree of uncertainty I can hold, that's what accelerates my growth. It's getting to that place of, yeah, if I feel stagnated, if there's no inspiration in my life, and if I'm not very happy with the way things are going, that stability I might have built could be a prison for me. That could be making me miserable. And we're not talking about throwing everything away. We're talking about, like, well, zoning into stuff that would refresh your life, that would be more exciting for you, and there's risk involved with any of that. Do I stay in the same thing that I know I have a lot of expectation around what this brings, or do I need something new? Variety is a need, just like safety and security is. We do need some uncertainty in our life. The best things in life are the unexpected. They're the surprises that come in. It's that ability to be open to that. If you had a tough childhood, if it was unstable, um, of course, from that place, you would desire stability at some point. So that's a very natural thing. But that's usually just in response to, whatever we're experiencing. We usually want the exact opposite if it's a bad experience. I might have built too much certainty, too much stability, where, every day is kind of the same thing. That's the natural starting place is okay, if I didn't like the instability of what I grew up in or some of the things I experienced, I am going to work towards stabilizing. And once I get stable, that's going to be good for a while, but at some point I'm probably going to want something more. I'm probably going to want something different. That's the nature of life, is we always have new desires. It's just, do we allow ourselves to go there? Do we allow ourselves to feel that and pursue that? Or do we just kind of settle in and go about the routines and all the day-to-day stuff that's normal? It's what's the right dose for you. What's going to give me some excitement, some fulfillment, you know, that it, once again, that is a basic human need. Is we need, that's what like brings new life into us, is when we have things to look forward to that are exciting to us. I might be holding myself back. It could be a career change. It could be, I know what this brings, and it might be tolerable. They always say kind of like being in the middle is like, it's like the worst place to be, because things don't like feel bad enough for you to actually want to change them, but they don't actually feel good either. It's kind of this purgatory. Life just gets kind of bland and dry, and it's giving ourselves that space to, well, like, the only person that's going to change that is going to be me. I'm going to have to bring new energy in, and that means I'm going to have to take steps off my normal path. I'm going to have to deviate to shake things up, to get my mind going in a new direction. Because if we're just in autopilot, we're not fully present in our life, we're not fully connected, we're going through the motions. And once again, that has the benefits of safety, security, but it also doesn't give us that spice in life. It's finding things that can add that to your life. It's always usually based on trying something new, putting yourself out there in a new way. And the bigger changes is going to be like, yeah, I just can't take it anymore. I'm tired of all the stuff I'm going through. I'm tired of everything I'm living. That's where I have to like bet on myself, ask some deep questions, and make some hard changes. And that's where I might drastically shift. That would be like an identity shift, where I'm going to be moving like big foundations because maybe I've built this life that I don't even like. Right? That happens quite often because we're not in full participation with our life. We get pulled into things. We say yes to a lot of the things we don't want to, and then we're not making conscious choices every step of the way. We're just going with the flow and getting pulled into default. That's how I end up with this like mixed bag of a life. Is I didn't really choose any of it. It all just kind of happened. I think that's a tough thing to swallow when you're just like, well, I don't think I chose any of this. It naturally happened, and now I feel trapped by it. Too much safety and security can create that, where, there's just no new stimulation coming in to expand our mind back up. Our happiness and joy is really anchored to this path of expansion, always becoming more, always growing in a new way, making progress towards something. That side of things means I'm moving out of the realm of what's known and moving into uncertainty. And and that's all a risk really is I'm moving into something that's uncertain. If we have this brighter future that we can really attach to, it would just kind of be like, why not take the steps? Why not give it a shot? Especially if I already know what this life brings and I don't really enjoy it. One of the biggest regrets people have on the deathbed stuff, they wish they would have done things differently. They wish they would have like cared more about their relationships, but they also wish they would have took chances. They would have put themselves out there in new ways. I think like having those perspectives, if a lot of people at the end of their life carry those things, I think those are good ideas to think about. People that are confronting, that's where we all end up. There's a lot of wisdom there of maybe I valued the safety and security too much. Maybe I just did what I thought I was supposed to do. And in that process, I didn't do anything I wanted to do. And so it's about bringing those perspectives, that wisdom into your life now. And it's asking those questions like, how do I want to live? Because uncertainty, it's just anxiety. It's just my mind doesn't know what's coming next. And in most situations, what's the worst that can happen, right? You can always solve problems. You can always pick up the pieces, whatever it is. And that's things we're not talking about having to take huge risks. The bigger risks you take is really proportional to the risk reward thing. I can change my life pretty dramatically if I take a big risk. If I want something more manageable, I can just take small steps. It's whatever is appropriate for you. There's no judgment on it.
You and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's talk about, so there's small risks or manageable risks. And one of the things I expressed to you earlier this morning was like some of the places where I personally would take risks for that excitement have started to not feel like risks anymore. And you have a lot of triathlete clients, so they may relate to this, right? Where it's in the beginning of an endurance sport kind of journey, whatever it is, triathlon, running, biking, whatever it is, you put this big goal out there and you're like, I don't know if I can do it. It's like a big risk to try to do it. And then you go do it and you don't die. It might hurt a whole lot, but you don't die. And so then you put another one and another one. And at least for me, I'm hitting the point where it's cool. I like doing it. I like the lifestyle, but it's no longer exciting. It no longer feels like a risk.
And that's just
Yeah.
that process of getting familiar with it. But it's just like it was uncertain at one point, and I've been doing it long enough that now it's like I know what to expect, right? And and so when we don't know what to expect, like that's what gets the nerves firing, right? That's what brings the excitement is like I don't know what this is going to bring, and that's the energy of excitement. The nature of anything, if I'm doing it long enough, it's not going to have the same feel to it every step of the way. Especially people that are doing triathlon as a career or any like athlete that's their job. It's just such a grind day in and day out. You're training like all these things. It's a lot of like really boring stuff. But you got to find ways to keep it fresh. You got to find ways to renew it. I need different mindsets about it. I need to bring different dynamics in, so because that challenges my mind to adapt. The thing is like to develop mastery, it is this idea of consistency. I show up every day and I do it. That's how you get really good at anything. But but there's a point where you kind of hit a wall with things and then you need to form a different relationship with it. Like things do get boring. I think last year, like Taylor Nibb talked a lot about that, where, yeah, it just like wasn't fun anymore, and I had to like figure out new challenges for myself, because she was just dominating all the time, right? Even like winning a lot can be boring, right? It's that challenge to, yeah, I need to shake this up somehow, because how do you maintain motivation when there's not excited? It's easy when we're excited, but it's like a lot of things. It's that sustaining it. Anything that was once exciting can be pretty boring and dry. And I would say, maybe even like somebody that like is skydives all the time, maybe that becomes boring to them at a certain point. Or these like extreme things because you already know what it is. For me, travels become that way a little bit, going all over the place all the time. It just all starts to feel the same. It's just kind of reaching for like, yeah, like how I need to inject some new dynamics to freshen something up, or maybe it had its time. Maybe I took it as far as I needed to, and I want a new journey now. So risk and uncertainty are really the same thing. It's just I'm trying to wrap my mind around what this thing is. I don't know what it is. I'm putting myself out there and I don't know what to expect. That is how I build self-trust, is I have to trust that I can just figure it out along the way. That's what any risk is. It's if you're starting a business, it's like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work out, but I'm going to try it. But you put yourself out there and you just keep working it to try and grow it. I think a lot of people that, even grow big businesses, it's like you get to the stage where you're just like, yeah, I wish I was like kind of back in the beginning of this where I was naive and had to learn all the stuff, right? Because once you get to the mountaintop, it's kind of like all the same stuff. The things you set your sights on and the goals you had, it stops, it loses its feeling. That's where we need something new. We really value like consistency, and people fall into roles pretty easily where we like know what to expect from them and that kind of stuff. And that's where life starts to be on autopilot, is everything starts to be the same. That's why we follow our excitement, is it's nudging us towards the expansion of ourselves. That expansion is going into the unknown, and that's the most rewarding stuff, is when we go through that. And because it shakes things up. It gets the excitement, nerves going. You start feeling more. It's just like you might be totally confident in this area, and you might like be really insecure over here, right? And so it's like exposing all that stuff. It gives you like a new project to work on and engage with. And so yeah, I guess that's I don't even view like risk as a big deal at this point. I think you should be doing that every step of the way, is trying new things, putting yourself out there in new ways. Because when you start to detach from stuff where, oh, it's just like money, you can make more. When you make things life and death, though, it seems like very, very big. But well, how do I want to live my life? Do I want to live my life just living the same day every day? If the answer to that's no, we kind of need some of this stuff. It is just, what are you even here to do, right? It is to expand, it is to grow, it is to get experiences, it's to try new things. It is going away from safety, but really, like, the more you trust yourself, it's not even usually a safety risk anymore. The more you go through this process, the more you confront these lower aspects of yourself, the doubt, the self-worth, like all these things. So the more you clean that up, life has kind of this flow where it pulls you in these different directions. And yeah, you get surprises along the way, but you don't really ever feel like you're in danger, or that there's like a big security risk. It's more of, this was unexpected. And you just start to develop the same process of like, oh, now I have to get familiar with it, and I have to learn more about it, and I have to work through the issues associated with it. And if I stick with it, I can develop this area, I can get better at it. You start to see how the same rules apply no matter what you're doing. You may have just been in something so long that it's scarier because this is so practiced, right? It's just really like having a life that's too structured, and doesn't have any spontaneity in it, doesn't have any things that bring new energy in. That's what I call settling, really, is just like this. It's the same day every day. When we're too structured, then we start to tear down some structures, we start to open it up. We start to, maybe these structures really support me, but maybe these ones, like, I dread. Maybe it's like, I think about that, maybe that doesn't feel very good. So maybe I need to remodel that part. Maybe I need to tear down that wall and build something new. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is being selective about what has gotten boring and dry in your life. Is there an opportunity to shake it up? Is there an opportunity to bring new energy in? If you like live in a house from like the 80s or something, like, you're going to want to redecorate it at some point. You're not going to stay, because it just doesn't feel right. It's this constant renewal, constant refreshing. And so this, it is bringing in new things. If you look at fashion trends, every season they got, new styles out and stuff, right? And it's just like, oh, well, I didn't know they could do that. That's the cool stuff in life. That's what progress is. It's creativity and expansion and thinking differently, and yeah, maybe breaking some of the rules, that kind of thing. That's what keeps life exciting.
We've talked about it pretty generally so far in terms of taking risk and things like that. Are there any more specific examples? I'm thinking a little bit about, like, if it is your job, a professional triathlete, as the example that you used earlier. I mean, you could quit and go do something totally different. That would be a risk, right? You could be like, I no longer want to be a professional athlete. I'm going to go do whatever something else is. But if it's no, I want to keep doing this thing and I need to make it more exciting, right? You mentioned having new mindsets or bringing something new in. What are some examples that you have of that? Reinventing the mindset more specifically, or the element that someone could bring in.
You just start switching out variables. If I'm training in the same places every day, yeah, maybe I mean, and you and Aaron do a good job of this where you go out to Colorado and you go these different places. And, I think it's kind of built into the sport, but how do I insert some variety here? How do I play with some dynamics? So yeah, if I've had this coach forever and it's just all feeling very routine and I've plateaued, maybe I switch up coaches. Maybe I do a different type of training, maybe one area I've been neglecting because I struggle with it, maybe I actually just dive into that to try and develop it, right? I want to be continuously taking on new challenges because that's what expands us. That's what allows us to grow is I need to confront the things that, that don't feel very good to me. And so sometimes, yeah, I've been like avoiding an aspect. So it's if I'm just using the same skill set over and over again, it's bound to get boring. With coaching, like I said, I think I started with baseball players and I was already like so done with baseball. Like I was just so over it. And then I was just like, well, this is like naturally what I can do. And I only coached like baseball players for like 2 years because I'm just like, yeah, like I just like literally don't care anymore. And so then yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I'll get into the endurance stuff or whatever. I'm always looking for new types of clients, new problems to solve. It's the same stuff, but it's different slants on it. It's even okay, I have the one-to-one calls and then it's okay, I like retreats or group coaching or what, it's just different expressions of it or workshops. It's just like what do I need to do when I'm getting bored with it? What do I need to do to shake it up? It's not being too attached to anything needing to be a certain way. I'm still using the same skills. I'm still using the same muscles, but it's like it's more dynamic. Oh, like how do I apply it over here? And a few years ago with corporate stuff, like that was like something that was exciting to me. And so it's finding ways to play around with it. And after we like get done playing around with it and it's still like isn't there, like yeah, maybe I've taken this as far as it goes, right? And so there is those points too. I hit that with baseball, like, you with horses to a certain extent. And there's always the, oh, like, what if I stayed in it? But if the larger part of you is like pulling you out of it, if the larger desires are behind, like, okay, I need something else, that's kind of when you go there. We don't have to maintain the same identity all throughout our life. I think we're all built in phases pretty naturally. And I think they naturally unfold and unwind when we're ready for something new. But it's the clinging to the past that gets us stuck. It's this is all I know. But the trick is whatever if I've been focused in an area for a long time, there's like certain things that like made me really good at that. And those are universal principles. That same process I did over here, I just have to bring that over here and start again. But it's like that's really all we're trying to with that's what experience does is it starts to make things not a big deal. It's the same process, I just have to adjust it to this. And so that means like yeah, I need to be okay making mistakes, I need to fail, like I need to go put things under stress, I need to go figure out where I'm weak in these areas, and I need to confront the parts of me that are blocking me from my progression. That's going to be like the self-doubt's going to activate again, the insecurities, the not being sure of myself. The more you do that, like the more that's like actually like a fun process rather than like a dreadful thing. Okay. It starts to be like, oh well yeah, like it's good to engage to like for something to really call my focus so that I have to really dig in and learn again. And this continuous learning idea too, that's the expansion. There's always new things to learn. But so when we get stuck in the past and we stagnate and we settle too much, my mind gets very fixed. I just because if I've built stability, I'm trying to protect that. And so now my mind gets rigid and it only sees things a certain way, and then it doesn't allow new things to come in. So the longer I sit in it, my mind loses its flexibility, right? Because it's not having to work hard anymore. It's just like it knows what to expect, and I go through the motions, and I just practice that over and over again. And so in that place, like things start shrinking down. Like I'm not using those muscles to struggle through something, to really work on that level of learning something again. And 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 so things start to atrophy from that place, and we start to get more and more rigid. I think people like the elderly is like a good example. It's a lot of the traditional stuff. It was just work really hard, do the same thing every day, and it's like this is your life. And there's some good things there, but then there's also like, yeah, but it does create a very rigid mind. It creates a judgmental mind too, because the more I build my safety and security, and the more I'm trying to protect that, and anything that challenges it, like I'm just shut off to. My mind can't like mind can't absorb it because I've prioritized this so much. And so it's this ability to adapt and move through life. And okay, I'm going to go through this phase, and when it starts to feel off, or yeah, I might shake it up. But then when I hit the end of the line where okay, no matter what I try, this just doesn't really work anymore. I want to be in tune with that. And then I want to take the space to be, well, like, okay, what's next? What's the next chapter, right? I think they're all chapters. I don't think every chapter should be the same. So I've taken this as far as I've wanted. Part of the transition of that is I have to unwind the old thing a little bit. I have to detach from it, let it go. And the easier process I have with that, the smoother the transition is. But if I'm hanging on to or clinging to the past, that's where it's difficult to move forward, is because like there's some things I'm not willing to let go of because that's what makes me feel safe. But so we create the internal safety every step of the way. And we do that by, I start bringing those familiar ideas and I start applying them to other things. So it's not me like actually starting from scratch. Like I understand the process. And so I'm seeing the new situations through that lens. So I know there's like a science to it. I know that if I just stick with it and keep working the puzzle, like eventually I'll get to where I want to go. And so the more you go through that process, these things aren't actually risks. You just kind of see it as the process. I have to be willing to surrender my past. I have to be willing to let things go. I have to shed old skin, and I'm exchanging that for some new life. I'm putting, I because that leads me down this path, and it's like me. My identity is just simply attached to what I normally do. So if I shake that up, like I literally start to become a different person. That's what they talk about, the growth path, or like having a big goal is like I literally have to become somebody else in order to accomplish that. So it's an identity shift, it's a transformation, is I have to let go of everything I know, but I'm not, once again, I'm not starting from step one. I have all this wisdom from me doing that process over here. So if I just can move it over here, now it's like that brings more certainty into the uncertainty. It's not something brand new. Like if you lived enough life, you see how a lot of the things are similar. So you just start to bridge those gaps. The more you catch that rhythm, like you can accelerate your process no matter what you're doing. If you just see it as a process of like, okay, I have to get familiar with this, I have to go deep into it, I have to really learn it, and once I get clear on what I need to build from, like that's where I start building that foundation. If we're just focused on, let's say it's a job, and okay, this job is my source of income, that's something we need in life. I view that job as my source. So one of my challenges might be like developing my ability to create income in another way, right? So I start to, I don't just like quit overnight, usually it's usually I build in a transition of like, okay, I'm going to start to figure out other ways where I don't feel so dependent on this thing for my safety and security. We build a runway. We lead up to things so that I can eventually take the jump, whether that's, but it's like I'm engaging and I'm starting that process. Everything starts small, and then the more energy you put into it, it builds. So it's just like I just prioritize, I create that space in my life, and I'm building up for this transition. And so I keep devoting more and more time to it until it hits that jumping off point. but it's like I've already got some momentum behind it. And so we have to go into our beliefs there. We have to see this ability that, hey, like I can be dynamic, I can create different ways, and I can create value in other ways. This is just what's known to me, and I'm only doing it because it's certain, because it's familiar, because I know that, okay, I go to work and I get the paycheck. It could just be switching companies. It could just be like moving departments. It could be, just playing around with things that way too. It doesn't have to be a whole career shift, but it's, sometimes you might switch departments, you might switch companies in a similar role, like, and you might be like, oh yeah, like I don't even really like this anymore. Okay. And so that's where it starts, that process of, okay, I need to think deeper. I need to connect with myself. I need to figure out, where I want my life to head. And I need to start to align pieces with that. The way we do that is we follow our excitement. So I need to create the space to get some inspiration. I need to start to expose myself to new things and new ideas to get the wheels turning so I can start to think a little bit differently. And the more I start to grasp that, now I get some steps to take.
There are a few things that you said that are like calling me out personally. We're not going to get into all of that, except for you did bring up one thing that I have another question about. And that is when we were talking about like the training aspect and bringing new things in with training, and you talked about maybe you concentrate on something that you've neglected. This is also like a personal call out on me because I dislike strength very much. I know there's opportunity for me to do that, but that does not feel either like a risk or exciting for me to concentrate on that, even though I know that I need to. Would you say in cases like that, though, that it is still a risk?
I don't know if I would classify it as a risk, but it's okay. So the thing I'm neglecting that I don't really want to do, like that's generally the thing I need to do. That's going to take the other stuff to a new level. Part of spicing things up is, if I get really good at something, that's actually exciting and that's fun. Because now I'm at play with it. That's all we're trying to get to is like, where did I stop being playful? Where did I stop, like, trying new things or experimenting? Because it's really just working our mind a million different ways so that it doesn't just stand still. It's just being engaged with something, and it's approaching things with curiosity. Okay, so yeah, why am I avoiding this thing? Like, why don't I like it? Is there a version of it that could be fun? That kind of stuff. And so that's the experimentation, is me engaging with it and trying different ways so that it's like, okay, yeah, this is something like I can get on board with. So there's the trial and error process to that. But that's the so things we don't enjoy, that is the stuff we, and not that you have to like get good at everything. And if me doing that work is going to be supportive of the other stuff that I'm doing, well, yeah, that's probably the thing holding me back from really like enjoying this. It's just coming to terms with that stuff of, if I've tried everything else and all the stuff that, I usually do, or that's easier for me to do, and I'm at a plateau, well, if I'm not making progress, that's going to get pretty boring. So me going into the cave I don't want to go into, like that's the one that, okay, yeah, that's complementary, that's supportive of this. It might make this other stuff more exciting again too. These things aren't meant to be call outs because it's literally just life. It's like everybody goes through this stuff. It's like
It's fine. I can feel called out. It's fine.
it's just the nature. This is how you experience life. This is your nervous
Yeah.
system, what holds us back, where I get stuck, like all that stuff. It's, everything here is like universal, and that's the point, is it's it's to make it not feel like you're alone with it. Week after week, it's like I'm having like a lot of the same conversations. Everybody has the same things. And it's through this lens of stress. I'm frustrated with something, or, I'm struggling with something, or I have anxiety about something stuck in your past. You're trying to protect yourself. We got to make peace with it so that we can open that door and expand this area of your life.
This has been a good one. Do you want to, kind of give our listeners your couple of final key thoughts or takeaways from this episode?
I encourage you to like reflect and, take a look at, we all know people that have like lived the same day their entire lives that haven't changed much, that, maybe are stubborn in that. Just kind of reflect on the idea. Are they happy? Um, are they proud of their life? And like I said, there can be some aspects that they are, but then there's probably some regrets. There's probably some risks that they didn't take. And so I think it's important to bring those ideas to the present of where you're at, and ask yourself those questions. If I continue on this path of doing the same things, like what does that look like for me? And will I be happy with that result? If the answer is yeah, I'll be happy with that, then great. There's nothing you really need to do. But just like we need certainty in our life, we also need uncertainty, because that's what brings new life, new energy, excitement. Is we need unexpected things. We need surprises. I encourage you not to get so closed off that you value the safety too much that you're missing out on this whole other aspect of life. It's really the design of the two hemispheres of the brain and stuff, right? It's like we have these masculine and feminine principles, and so the masculine is just like, yeah, I build this structure. It's concrete, and can get too fixed where the creative side of us, the flowy side, totally shuts down. The flowy side is what tears down the walls. It's like the feminine nature of us, the creative force within us. If that's suppressed, like that's going to steal our joy. We're not going to be happy and fulfilled, because life is this continuous expansion. And so we need to remodel once in a while. We need to tear down some of those walls, some of those structures, and we need to bring new life into it. It's a balance depending on what stage you're at in life, what you've got going on. It doesn't have to be major moves, but we generally want to make some sort of move to bring some inspiration, excitement in your life. What may be holding you back is it's just habits. It's just this is what's known. It might be like I worked really hard to create stability and I don't want to go back to that. We're not talking about tearing everything down. We're talking about maybe remodeling or adding to. Okay. And if you're at that point where you just don't like any of it, yeah, you might be in teardown mode. You might need to build something completely new, but you're not starting from step one. It is like your life has brought you wisdom. It's brought you the process of how you built the first version to begin with, and you can always create again. If you're living a life that doesn't quite fit, we probably need to take some risks, and that just means I need some uncertainty. I need to put myself out there in a way that if we need motivation, sometimes playing on some of those survival things works, right? It could be like, okay, I'm going to really bet on myself and take some big risks, and because I got to shake things up in a big way. And so I put myself in a position where I'm forced to like figure it out. That's kind of the point of no return. There can be a lot of power to that stuff, but it is really what's the right dose for you. And yeah, just be open. The fixed mind we're actually regressing. Everything starts to shut down, and once those muscles shut down, it's hard to wake them back up. So it's better to just keep them engaged. And it doesn't have to be anything really intense, but we just want new things. And yeah, you just got to get energy moving. If it's stagnated, you got to shake it up.
You want to wrap with all the best places for people to find you and any other updates you've got?
But yeah, so if you're curious about this work and need some support in taking some risks, putting yourself out there in a new way, it's something I regularly do. You can schedule a free 30-minute strategy session with me on my website, brandonthielk.com. You can also register for my newsletter, The Lightning Report, that goes out each week with updates on the business, some insights for the week, some things to think about. And if you want to follow along on YouTube and Instagram at Brandon Thielk, we post out there regularly, also at bthielk on TikTok. Please like, subscribe, follow. Would love to hear from you guys and how I can support you in a bigger way. So yeah, please reach out if you have anything for me.
Yeah. Awesome. As I mentioned before, all the links for that stuff will be in the show notes or the description on YouTube.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Talk to you later, Brandon.